the Dialed In Angling podcast presented by Onyx Fish, Arneson's Rocky Point Resort, Runnings, Visit Watertown, South Dakota, Mantrap Lodge, and Visit Cook County. This week, we're going to cast our attention to the great state of South Dakota. I love fishing the Midwest all times of year, but particularly in the summer. I love getting out to the Dakotas. I love fishing with my guest this week, Marcus Quam. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it.
Marcus, I know you're out in North Dakota right now. You're probably on Devil's Lake. Currently, I kind of can hear some wind. I know you're pre-fishing for a tournament. You've been doing a lot of fishing. Give us some, insights and updates in what you've been up to, buddy.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm up in North Dakota right now. We got our last tournament of the season for the Casino Cup, so we have the championship here at the end of the week, and it's been a busy summer. I feel like I've been going nonstop between tournaments and guiding. It's been really good, catching plenty of fish back home. Been having good luck on the circuit this year, so it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. You know, when I was plugging my boat in today and talking to you over the last few days, as far as you jumping on the podcast this week, I love talking to you because I know you can relate to everything that I go through every single day. Right now, as we get into August, I feel like I'm getting to Groundhog's Day. And if you've ever seen the movie Groundhog's Day, you know exactly what I'm talking about. My alarm goes off at the same time. I go to the same bait shop. I drink the same coffee. I meet the customers morning around the same time. I clean fish. I get home about the same time. I plug in my boat. Groundhog's Day, buddy. I know you're feeling it. And I know both of us are looking forward to fall fishing. But, you know, in my neck of the woods anyway, fishing's been okay, you know, as far as August is concerned. I'm not, you know, of course, you're going to have the up and down days in August. But, you know, obviously with forward-facing sonar and technology, I don't know. The last few years, it seems like the dog days this summer isn't quite as bad as it was in the past. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree 100%. I mean, we're catching fish that were, I wouldn't say untouchable, but like a lot of different stuff where we used to have to time of year, where now we're able to kind of throw jigs or bobbers and that kind of stuff's on top of these fish still. So it is Groundhog's Day this time of year, but yeah, like you said, the live scope for forward-facing sonar has changed the way I fish. I mean, definitely, even if I do have to troll or something, I definitely still have my one of my poles down, looking around, just seeing what's going on. And when you get by a big pot of fish, you can spin and do something a little bit more fun again too.
Yeah, absolutely. I usually take a few days off in August to go fishing elsewhere, like, you know, you're up in Devil's Lake right now. I know for me, I'm going to do a little bit of lake trout fishing on Lake Superior next week. Hopefully we're going to do a little podcast about that. I'm just desperately wanting to get up to Lake of the Woods to do some of that stuff. I usually go to Canada this time of year. In the past, I've gone to Alaska. So I usually try to take a little break. I know tournament fishing isn't necessarily a break, air quotes, for you, but I'm sure it's nice for you to get onto a different body of water, see some different waters, and just kind of, you know, scope things out and kind of just get away from guiding a little bit.
So with like all the tournament fishing I do, if I didn't schedule this, I'd have a hard time getting away from the house. You kind of get in the grind, but doing tournaments helps me leave, try new things. I think it makes me a better angler, a better guide, and kind of pushes me to try new things and different techniques at different times of the year. So I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree. I love being a multi-species angler as a guide. You know, there's a lot of times where I'll, if I have a day off the water, I go fishing, right? People always think I'm nuts, but when I have a day off the water of guiding, I still love to fish, and I have a son that loves to fish. And so, you know, I'll go bass fishing one day, or I'll hit a different body of water in a different part of the planet, and you end up fishing differently. But 9 times out of 10, whatever you're doing, you take that back to wherever you were fishing prior to. I know even just being on Mille Lacs Lake, I was sort of tied into these fish that were out deep, and I was chasing fish that were just off a structure. throwing jig crawlers, doing all this stuff. And all of a sudden I got in really shallow bass fishing and I realized that the crayfish were molting. And guess what? The walleyes were way up in there. Even though it's August, I was catching walleyes in 4 to 5 feet of water. So by getting out of that sort of comfort zone or that routine of guiding, actually, spurs a lot of really good angling techniques out of me, or it gets me thinking about other things. So I couldn't agree more, Marcus. Say, in addition to, some of the tournament things you've been doing, are there any other highlights that you have, or even you can reference some of the tournaments you've been fishing or cool things that have happened this summer where you're like, wow, that was killer?
Our bite's been pretty good at home. I missed out a little bit on some of the spring fishing. We had a baby boy here in May, so that's kept me really busy too. But I would besides that, I mean, I've been lucky and fortunate. I think I'm on my 5th or 6th tournament, and I don't know. I enjoy every day of it. I mean, I'm just like you. I'm a fish head. I can count how many days I've been off the water easier than I can count how many days I've been on the water. So the highlight's just getting to go and live the dream every day.
Yeah, right on. I know the last time that I saw you, we were both up at the Rainy River. When you had kind of headed back home, you were talking about fishing open water. We didn't have open water at that point, and I was super jealous. That's one thing about South Dakota, North Dakota. You guys are able to get on the water much earlier than we are, as far as chasing walleyes or doing whatever, just because we're always kind of handcuffed to that later ice out, but also, that Minnesota fishing opener doesn't start until middle of May. And it seems like, you guys have already been on the water for at least a month by then.
Yep.
I know you were talking about like fishing out in front of areas where there was like current or culvert areas where you're dumping in boats, even though you had ice on the lake and you were catching walleyes. I mean, dude, that kept me awake at night for a while because I just kept on thinking, man, I got to bring my boat out there and dump it in somewhere.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky. We're fortunate. We got our whole state is kind of a mecca, or at least half of it, for walleye fishing. So even if I'm iced up and the ice is iffy, we can hook up the boat and go to the Missouri River. And we got several dams that we can fish below, and usually that ice is off sooner and the fish are moving up to spawn. So we could fish in a boat all year if you lived in the right area in South Dakota.
Yeah, I want to get out there. It's been quite a few years since I've gone out there in the spring, and I got to do it. You sort of get locked into doing the trips that you do every year, like Rainy River. I go out to Green Bay. I used to go to South Dakota. I've gone to North Dakota as soon as that's gone out. But you sort of get locked into these trips, and I want to get back into that South Dakota routine where I get out to South Dakota early. It's fun. Just getting a bend in the rod or feeling a walleye hit a jig in the spring. You are like me, my friend. You spend your winters on the ice, and the first thing you want to do is feel a fish clunk a jig on a rod. I got to get back out there and do that with you.
Yep, I look forward to it. Every spring it's the same way. I love ice fishing just as much as you, but after sitting out there all winter, those first few nice days when the sun's warm on your back, it kind of makes you get the itch to get the boat back out.
Sure. Boy, we want to talk about like areas in South Dakota that you fish. I know you range around, you guide in a lot of different areas. Watertown, South Dakota, or Visit Watertown, South Dakota is a sponsor of the show. Let's talk a little bit of fishing in Watertown itself, and just sort of break down some of those waters, what anglers can expect, what species to target, some of your experiences. Can you let our listeners know, like, from a guide's perspective, what are some of the things they can do out in Watertown?
Well, so Watertown's kind of like the edge of the glacial lakes for what I would call it. So, I mean, you don't even have to hardly leave Watertown and you hit the first lake. That would be like Kempeska. That's just a little bit out of my zone. I fished it a little bit, but it's got good walleye fishing in it. It's got some panfish. You got a lake just on the south side of that called Pelican. I know guys are getting some nice walleyes out of there earlier this year. And then if you'd range about a half hour away to the west, that's when you start running into stuff that I fish quite a bit. And all of them are full of walleyes. Some of them have northerns, some of them have perch. But I know the state has done a really good job of stocking the walleyes right in our area. So you can go five minutes from town or a half an hour, and you're gonna have a good chance of catching a lot of fish.
What's crazy to me is like those little pothole lakes, even in North Dakota, but South Dakota in particular. You get out there in the winter, and I always think, man, this lake looks like it would freeze out. Like if you were in northern Minnesota, this lake would be froze out. And you go out there, and it's chock full of fish. Not only is it chock full of walleyes, it's chock full of panfish, pike, whatever. And it always blows my mind. And I know it has a lot to do with, the South Dakota state stocking and what they do with their fisheries. But that fact that it doesn't freeze out to me, it's hard for me to grasp.
Yeah, some of it doesn't make sense to me either. I'm not um, sure if a lot of it is, depending on the year, how much snow cover it is, or if we get plenty of photosynthesis. But there's lakes that are 8, 9, 10, 11 foot deep that hold all year, and we don't have any problems with winter kill unless it's a really, really bad winter.
Okay, yeah, it's always mind boggling to me. It's not like it's any warmer down there, and I didn't know if it was more like spring fed or what the situation is. But even I remember fishing lakes in South Dakota in that Watertown area that were not very deep. And I know back then, obviously, I didn't have forward facing sonar and I didn't check all depths of the lake, but I just remember fishing lakes that were like 10 feet deep, and they were absolutely chock full of walleyes. And I thought, man, how does this thing not freeze out? So,
No, it's we're pretty lucky. I live in one of my favorite areas to go, and I'm lucky to call it home.
so Marcus, what other areas have you been kind of concentrating on this summer? What are some of the highlights, whether it's guide trips or whatever? I know I talked to you one day, you're on Big Stone. I've talked to you, you've been over on Waw Bay. I know that's kind of your home turf over there by Waw Bay. What are some of the highlights of the summer for you so far as guiding? What are you seeing? I know you're talking about some really good year classes that are coming up, a lot of smaller walleyes, which is great to see. We're starting to see some of that on Mille Lacs. But what are some of the highlights for you this summer as far as guiding or tournaments or whatever?
So the main highlights for guiding is we do have a lot of fish that are in our systems. There's a pile of those 14 inchers, and it's not just one lake; it's a lot of them. We've been having a lot of fun this year, just because of the sheer numbers of fish a guy can catch. Some of the highlights for me on the tournament stuff is we're lucky enough to be leading for team of the year here in the Casino Cup circuit. We fished 5 league events around home. We got second for team of the year in that. We won our bidder event, which would kind of be what I'd call my home body of water. We've been lucky to get first the last 4 years in that one. Trying to mesh everything together here. I mean, obviously it's been a good season and a good summer. I'm really looking forward to getting in the fall, and hopefully that'll be here in a couple weeks, and we're going to cool down and start getting some cooler nights and get back into some fall fishing here soon.
I heard all winter long from you, like when we were out there filming in the Snow Bear, dialed in angling, we caught a bunch of walleyes, smaller walleyes. But I've heard from a lot of other anglers that go out there that were out there this winter, that came out this spring, and all of them were talking about that crazy year class of fish where you can go out and just catch walleyes, like 100 walleyes in a day that are, kind of in that 12 to 15 inch range or 13 and 14 inch range primarily. Are you seeing that kind of all over? Is that isolated to just, certain lakes? I mean, I know sometimes you get these crazy good year classes or a good hatch in particular. Like I know, here in Minnesota, it seems like, Mille Lacs will have a good hatch. Winnie, Leech, Lake of the Woods will all kind of have a good year as a result of sort of springtime conditions. Are you seeing that in a lot of areas in your region, or is it just specific bodies of water?
No, I'm definitely seeing it in a lot of different bodies of water. And I don't know if we just had the right spring with stocking, but I can think all of our lakes seem to have a big number of fish in those year classes from 12, 14, 15 inches. Bitter and Wabe would be the main ones. But I can think of probably another half dozen smaller lakes all the way from Watertown to north of Webster that are the same thing. I think whenever they stocked fry from this year class, it's probably 2, 3 years old. The stars must align and everything took off just right.
Onyx Fish is the best tool I have ever used for finding new lakes to target. Download the app today to get fisheries informations in the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin, along with research tools for serious anglers and beginners alike. Filter lakes by species, trophy only, keeper fish, abundance, or all of the above. Plan which lakes to fish with the app, navigate to the accesses, and once you're there, use the Onyx best-in-class weather imagery and fishing hotspots to catch more fish. Onyx Fish is a phenomenal tool both on and off the water for discovering new fishing opportunities, many of which you would never known existed. Onyx Fish, the app that is changing the game on ice.
Visit Cook County, Minnesota, a year-round fishing destination like no other. Spring brings steelhead and smelt runs along the Lake Superior shoreline. In summer, cast for walleye, lake trout, and northern pike in the region's inland lakes and rivers. As the leaves change, so does the fishing, with fall offering some of the best lake trout action around. When winter settles in, grab your gear and head out for ice fishing in a true northern wilderness setting. Whether you're an experienced angler or just discovering the joy of casting a line, Cook County has a spot and a season for you. Learn more and start planning your fishing trip at visitcookcounty.com.
Arneson's Rocky Point Resort in northern Minnesota offers a little something for everyone. Nestled on Lake of the Woods' South Shore, it provides easy access to 14 remarkable reefs. Serious anglers know that Arneson's offers some of the best fishing, charter fishing, and small boat fishing options, all supported by the largest protected marina on the lake's South Shore. Accommodation selections range from 1 to 5 bedrooms. Equipped with all the modern conveniences, guests can enjoy a delightful dining experience and stunning lake views at the Rock Harbor Lodge, an on-site, full-service bar and restaurant. The two beaches provide hours of fun for the whole family. Whether you're seeking an idyllic fishing spot or a relaxing vacation, Arneson's Rocky Point has everything you need. Check them out at arnesonsresort.com.
That's awesome. I just couldn't believe the reports I was getting from you, from other buddies that I know, even anglers that I know that don't fish that much, that were going out there and having really good success. I would call it kind of later ice period, but all throughout the ice season. And then this spring, a few buddies of mine that, live down towards the Twin Cities or west of the Twin Cities, we're talking about just zipping out to South Dakota and spending a weekend with their sons out there, and just the sheer amount of walleyes they were blown away. They're like, man, it's like being in Canada at times, or just the sheer numbers of fish that they were catching, like you're saying, on all sorts of different bodies of water. It wasn't just isolated to one particular body of water. So it's kind of neat to me, sort of interesting to me, because I've been fishing Mille Lacs a lot. I've been fishing Leech. I've been fishing Winnie, and it's crazy to see. I'm seeing some numbers like that, but it's not all widespread. It seems like Mille Lacs, it seems like last year's numbers are really good. Winnie in particular is kind of like that. It's sort of a ton of 12 to 15 inch fish right now. So it's crazy how a year class can just sort of dominate, and that's really good for and bodes well for things to come. I'm looking forward to getting out there sort of early ice with you at some point, whether it's with Dialed In Angling or just coming out to visit you, because nothing better than getting on early ice and just whacking a bunch of walleyes. If you want to scratch an itch of just putting fish topside, it's sort of like that same conversation that we had about open water fishing. After the ice fishing season's done, I can't wait to cast a line, feel a walleye, clunk a jig. Nothing better than dropping your electronics, dropping a Markham down the hole, and watching a walleye come up and just crush a spoon or a jig wrap. Man, if the fish are biting that well, I will definitely be making a trip out there. Even if, this winter they're, 13 to 16 inchers, don't care. Early ice, if they're just whacking it and I can walk out there and I'm smashing walleyes in that manner and that type of numbers, it's definitely going to be on my radar.
I agree. There's something about just being able to go somewhere and just, like you said, scratch itch, catch fish, rinse, repeat. It is a great time.
Yeah, I mean, I know you like chasing big fish. I do too. There's just certain bites that I always have to sort of scratch that itch. And early ice, I mean, I run up to Red Lake. I typically go up to Red Lake because we have early ice up there, but also it's because you get bit, right? You catch a lot of fish when you go up to Red Lake. Last year on Dialed In Angling, I got a 28 incher, which is very unusual for that body of water. But even if I'm not catching the big fish, that early ice period, just like when we went up to Devil's Lake and fish with Alex Reslock, we smashed them. When the schools of those fish would come through, it was like bam, 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 bam. And you're catching them. For me to get on early ice and to catch a bunch of walleyes, I gotta say that your neck of the woods is going to be on my radar, so I definitely will be calling you. Let's get back to where you're at right now. Let's talk a little bit about strategy. You don't have to give away your spots, how you're fishing or anything, but how is Devil's Lake for you this week? I know you said you had a decent day yesterday. Are you finding good numbers of fish? Are they biting? What's surface temperatures? I know I've been out there in August and it's like pea soup sometimes, but the fish are sometimes still up in that 3, 4, 5 feet of water.
Yeah, so the water was extremely green. Lots of algae yesterday. It was like flat calm. Water temp right now, 74 degrees. I am seeing a lot of fish shallow yet. Right along the weed lines, kind of edge of timber, edge of weeds. I would say most of my fishing's been done in, like, if the boat's in 10 foot. We have been catching a lot of fish on crawlers with bobbers and jigs. We have got some on plastics, got some on some reaction baits. I mean, I'm obviously just trying everything right now to narrow down what the best is going to be, but I haven't been up here in August yet, and I know I heard it was pretty tough from other guys or whatever the last week or two before I got here, but I'm totally content with the fishing. I think it's actually really good. I haven't seen any big fish, but I've seen decent numbers like 22, 23 inchers, fish up to 25, 26. So, it's definitely been a lot of fun here.
It is. And what's cool about Devil's Lake, and I'm sure you're used to it in South Dakota as well, but Devil's Lake pitching up into that timber is so rare for me. I don't get opportunities to fish flooded timber. Other than North Dakota, South Dakota, but particularly North Dakota, I can only think of a handful of times where I caught walleyes in timber, and that was like down in Arkansas fishing like bull shoals and stuff like that. But to be able to go to Devil's Lake and fish timber was a new experience for me when I first did it, and it was totally awesome. I mean, absolutely, I wanted more. I wanted to go back. I learned a lot when I was there. Let's just backtrack to the first time that I fished Devil's Lake in the timber with my boat. I was pitching paddle tails, and I know Jason Mitchell was there. We were kind of doing like a photo shoot deal, and a lot of people were bobber fishing, slip bobber fishing, and they were catching walleyes too. But coming from a kid and a guide that spends a ton of time bobber fishing, I didn't even have a bobber rigged up in my boat. I'm like, I'm throwing paddle tails. I'm throwing crankbaits. I'm doing anything but bobber fishing in the timber. And man, did we crack them. It was so much fun. That probably dates back, oh man, at least 15 years ago now. But every time I go up to Devil's Lake, even if the bite is elsewhere and it's not right in the timber, I almost always have to sort of check out those timber spots because it's so foreign to me. I don't get to fish wood like that. But it also showed me as an angler how shallow walleyes can be in warm water. I, grew up thinking, when the water warmed up, walleyes go deep, they're chasing bait deep. That's malarkey. Obviously, now with forward-facing sonar, you can see them up there, but it's amazing how shallow those walleyes will remain all year long.
Well, the fish only do two things, right? They spawn and they eat. So you just got to figure out where they're spawning, and then you got to figure out where they're eating.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, definitely a lot of times here, we're fishing structure. The weeds are going to hold fish because the bait's in the weeds or the bait's in the timber. They're small and vulnerable, so they want to be around cover where they feel like they can hide, and the walleyes are right behind them.
The other cool thing, in addition to timber, is like road beds, railroad tracks, things like that. I don't get to fish that stuff. So when I make it out to the Dakotas, I know you're used to it because of Wabe and all that. But yeah, I don't get to fish that stuff. So, going and fishing a road ditch was so foreign to me the first time I went out there. And now obviously it's just part of it, but I still love doing it. I think it's cool. And what's cool about now with forward-facing sonar is I love exploring, right? I explore lakes that I fish all the time, but getting out to a new body of water, whether it's in North Dakota, South Dakota, to see that structure on forward-facing sonar is awesome. It's like one of my favorite things to do. I could just drive around. Like I would love to have a few days off. I would come out and pre-fish with you, Marcus, and just sit there and run forward-facing sonar because I just like looking at it. It's like looking in an aquarium with road beds and farms and fences and flooded timber. It's super cool.
It is. I mean, it's almost like hunting in a kind of a situation where you can almost look at the landscape just outside the lake and you're fishing the exact same stuff in the lake.
Yeah, exactly. I know back home you guys fish a lot. You're used to fishing along roads and stuff. What are some advice I guess you'd give to anglers as far as what to look for, how to fish a road bed, how to fish some of the flooded timber? I mean, what are some of your go-to presentations?
My first one would be to cast it and it doesn't even matter what depth anymore. With guys using more of the jig wraps and that kind of thing, even if that road bed's in 20 or 30 foot of water, a guy can still cast it. And that's my favorite way to fish a road bed is just to go up and down it, whether it's a shallow one, you're pitching jigs and plastics, or a deeper one that you got to put jig wraps down on. And the next thing is a guy can troll them, either bottom bouncers or cranks. It just depends on how long your run is. And if you have a good place to turn around and hit it going back the right way again. But I would either cast them or troll them. And I find that, earlier in the day, a lot of those fish are on top. And then as the day goes on, they'll move down to the bottom or the ditch, right where it breaks off. So they're fairly easy to fish and they can be really, really good, really productive.
Now, I know forward-facing sonars changed kind of the way you fish as far as doing more casting and stuff, but like back in the day, did you do more trolling with bottom bouncers and spinners? Did you pull many bottom bouncers and stick baits? I mean, what was sort of your go-to before you started casting all the time?
I would do a lot with spinners. I really like to troll lead core. I would do a lot of that, and we use a lot of shad style baits or shad dancers, something of that nature. Their two main forage bases in the Dakotas would be either perch or freshwater shrimp. So, it's fairly easy to match a hatch with what we've had for crankbaits now, and so we would use a lot of shad style baits or shad dancers or something because there's two main forage bases. It'd be either the perch or the freshwater shrimp. So they're pretty easy to match a hatch with what we have for crankbaits.
Yeah, I know we've shifted to a lot more casting techniques. But with forward facing sonar, I've also gone back to some trolling. Like, when I was out in Sakakawea, I love casting plastics up shallow, especially if, you got a wind blown point, if the wind's really rocking for a couple days. Same on Devil's Lake. If the wind's really ripping into a particular area, those fish will load up in those areas, and I'm pitching plastics and ripping them. But we had days like out in Sakakawea where the fish sort of slid off the edge and they didn't want the plastic, right? They weren't eating that, albino shad or whatever, there's smelt eaters out there. As soon as I dropped down a bottom bouncer and a spinner, I started whacking them. So just using my forward facing sonar and trolling, I went back to just like seeing fish and then steering towards them and catching them, right? You talked about lead core fishing. Same thing with trolling. I'm getting back into doing a little more trolling here and there, not every day like I used to. Like come August back in the day, the lead core rods were going out and I was trolling for a month and a half straight. I don't do that anymore. I've sort of diversified, but putting the lead core lines out, hunting down fish that are out in the basin and going over the top of them, especially schools of fish, and putting good numbers of fish back in the boat without people having to finesse a jig crawler or dropping their bobber right on top of fish. From a guide's perspective, I'm catching more fish at certain times doing that by reviewing some of those bites that I should have been doing and not getting locked into just casting all the time. I think as we evolve as anglers, as the technology continues to evolve, we're not going to be locked into just always casting all the time. We're going to go back to some of those techniques that were the tried and true, and I'm already starting to do it. I know off air, you and I were talking about, you were talking a little bit about trolling, and that just kind of spurred that memory of mine. Like, don't give up on the trolling techniques, because trolling crankbaits can be not only effective, but can be super fun. And for a lot of customers that, maybe aren't the greatest at casting, it's hard to beat putting a shad dancer, a shad wrap down and just ripping over the top of a roadbed or cruising a mud flat or the top of the sand, like on Leech Lake the other day. I was beating my head against the wall, throwing bobbers out, jig crawlers. The fish weren't having it. I was wishing I had my crankbait box and my trolling rods, because we would have beat up on them. I know it.
Yeah, I know guys kind of laugh at me. They look at the boat and we got graphs on here and forward-facing sonars. But if they'd open my rod lockers, they'd see I still have about 16 trolling rods in the boat. I do love trolling. I actually do it quite a bit. And this time of year, there's something about setting a line and just watching that lure work, and next thing you know, that rod's about to buckle and hit the back of the boat. I still enjoy that a lot.
I do too. I love trolling all sorts of different crankbaits. I've got, obviously working with Rapala over almost 20 years now. I've got a lot of different style baits, and you were talking about like the shad dancer. I love when you get into this time of year, that real tight wobble type of bait, shad dancers, DTs. I troll DTs. I used to troll like the Risto wraps back in the day, obviously tail dancers, but anything with that tighter wobble, as soon as I got into August, it was my bread and butter. And, the trolling rods, I've definitely dusted off the lead core rods as of late. I've dusted off the bottom bouncer spinner rods, and it's really fun to hunt them down. It's almost as fun as when I'm casting to them and I'm hunting down fish with my forward-facing sonar. It's become fun again. The cool part is the learning curve is much shorter now, because like with lead core, I can see the exact depth at which the fish are at, right? Whereas back in the day, I'd see them on side imaging or 2D sonar. I'd sort of crank them up, but it was a little too late, right? Now you can anticipate that fish that's up high, and by the time you get to them, your baits are presented right at that depth or just above them. And so your hookup percentage is way, way better with forward-facing sonar. It's cool. I think as we evolve, you're going to see tournament anglers that are going to start winning some big-time tournaments, really adapting to some of the older ways.
Yep, for sure. I mean, I'll even take my one on the side of the boat on the pole and I'll turn it around and I'll watch baits on snap weights if I'm deep. And you can almost, jig a fish with your crankbait. You know, it's amazing how many fish actually follow your baits that don't eat. And by watching it, I mean, you can try to adjust it by going up and down with the fish with it, or you can kind of jig it, and it's either going to hit it and you're going to reel it in, or it's going to turn around and leave.
What's some of your go-to colors and baits? Let's say if you're going to Waubay, Bitter, Watertown, South Dakota, for that matter. I mean, are there like certain baits that if you're going out there, you gotta grab them?
If I was going to pick 3 colors, it would be a yellow perch, a hot steel, and a purple descent. That's going to cover you in every range, whether it's sunny or cloudy or raining, deep, shallow. Those 3 colors work all the time.
Well, I'm set then. I've got all 3 colors always rigged up in my the purple descent. For me, it's that natural yellow perch color, not the gold one. The purple descent. I still have some blue chrome orange bellies, believe it or not. One of my customers, he ordered a whole, and it's a good buddy of mine now. He ordered a whole bunch for his company and had his company logo put it on them. So that blue chrome orange belly is right up there with the purples for me too. And then I would have to mix in Fire Tiger. I like Fire Tiger and Hot Tiger, but Fire Tiger in particular. And then crayfish. You know, I can't, where I live, where I fish, whether it's Leech Lake with all the rusties or even Mille Lacs, it would be hard for me not to fish a crayfish at times.
No, that's a great color out here too. I mean, kind of the reds and the browns kind of match that color of the freshwater shrimp. I mean, I couldn't just pick 3 colors. I gave you my 3 best, but I have them all.
Right on. I know that the angler in me starts thinking, well, purple, but I need white, and then I need blue chrome, and I need black with chrome. Now for us, like a lot of our natural lakes, it's like anything Cisco colored, anything perch colored, anything crawfish colored, you pretty much have your bases covered. I know that your lakes in particular, you have all sorts of different water clarities that you're in contact with out there. What other things are you looking forward to? I know we touched on fall fishing. I don't want you to give up your spots or your locations, but you sort of hinted to me about this big fall fishing bite that you're on, and don't give the location, but like elaborate a little bit on, it's sort of the big fish bite. Cause I might have to I got to turn my boat in at the end of the season, right? But if there's a bite that I can't miss, I'll delay that boat drop off just to do it. So talk to our listeners or tell us a little bit more about some of the big fish bites that you're looking forward to this fall.
So, I mean, as well as I do, my favorite time to fish is in October. I mean, that's when everything's putting the feed sack on, the weather's getting cool, winter's coming. Some of the bites I'm looking forward to, most of the stuff I do is either pitch in like a jig wrap with the forward facing sonar or a soft plastic like a jerk bait. And then and trolling, I do a ton of lead core or snap weight trolling in the fall. I think we're gonna have a good fall, seeing as how well the summer's been. There's plenty of fish in these different lakes, but the biggest ones turn up and show out in October. So, without giving any locations, I'm just looking forward to what the fall's going to bring and seeing if we can crack any 13 or 14 pounders, hopefully.
See, now you got me fired up. 13, 14 pounders. That is definitely on my radar. I will fish and break ice to get out to 13, 14 pounders because that is something that intrigues me. I love fall fishing just like you. There's a couple different bites that I really want to get on this fall that I haven't been able to do the last few years. One is Lake of the Woods. You and I were up on the Rainy River this spring, but that fall shiner run is spectacular. And it's been several years since I've been able to do that. and really do it like when it's really, really hot, right? It was sort of like a little early the last time I did it. And, we sort of timed it out, picked a date on a calendar and headed up there, and it was too warm, and it just didn't work out. I want to time that just like I timed the Rainy River bite in the spring, and go up there in the fall when those river shiners are going and target giant walleyes, because Lake of the Woods is on my radar for that. Another thing, Mille Lacs Lake has had all these weird regulations over the last 10 years as a result of, missing year classes and not being able to keep walleyes, and then only keeping a couple, and night bans and all this stuff. Well, fall trolling at night was always like my mainstay. Like, I did tons of guide trips where we night trolled, and the amount of walleyes we caught over 26 inches in any given night was just like off the charts. Plus these nights, I remember these full moon nights of being out there and absolutely crushing them. Even in not too distant memory, I didn't have forward facing sonar. I mean, the night band's been on for almost 10 years now, or right around 10 years, but I didn't have forward facing sonar, but I had really good side imaging. And what we would do is I would guide during the day, and I'd go out and I'd start my guide trips a little bit later, and we would basically drive around with side imaging and throw jigs and plastics, jigs and shiners on fish, and just whomp them until the sun went down, and then we'd start trolling. And I just remember nights that were just beautiful out. There was a full moon, and going out there, and not only did we whale on them jigging, and then as soon as the sun went down, we were whaling on them trolling. And so, we were stacking up big numbers of big fish. For old time's sake, and, for that nostalgia sake, I really want to get out there and do some night trolling on Mille Lacs. I know the big fish numbers aren't what they were back then, although they are coming back, but the size of the fish right now, the health of that fishery, I really want to get out and do some night trolling on a full moon night. Pick a night where it's super nice out, or, at least decent weather. I don't want to be out there in snowstorms anymore, but being out there where it's nice out. We talked about it in our last podcast. I was talking to one of the Minnesota DNR, Greg Berg, a fisheries manager, and they're going to open it up to night fishing this year. So there's going to be other anglers that are going to do it. And I want to do the same thing. I want to take forward facing sonar, go out and whomp on them with jigs for the, last hour before the sun goes down, and then put the trolling rods down, and then get my 2 forward facing sonar units out, one on the pole, one on the front trolling motor, and sort of run down these fish and pull husky jerks through them and catch fish. My son has never experienced night trolling, and so I just want to get him out there to do that. I know there's going to be a lot of other anglers, but now that you say 13 to 14 pound walleyes, that's going to be on my radar too, Marcus. I might be sleeping in the baby's room. I'll wake up and feed the baby in the middle of the night for you, so I can stay at your place and go out and catch some of those 13 and 14 pounders you're referencing.
I hope you do. I hope to see. I broke my personal best twice last fall, so I'd like to see if I could do it a third time this year also.
Yeah, that's those are special fish. I can only think of a handful of locations where you can get fish like that anywhere. Those are fish that people dream about, and me in particular. It's been a while since I've broke even the 32-inch mark. I bet you it's been 2 years now. I've got a lot of 30s, right? 30 and a half, 31, but to break a 32, 33, definitely would hang on to my boat a little longer. I'd put the Strike Master suit on if I have to, and get after it in the fall with you. So, Marcus, I'm not going to take up much more of your time here. I know you're pre-fishing, you're on the water still. I really appreciate you jumping on. I know we've had a little bit of communication issues as far as you being in the sticks. You're probably in a bunch of trees right now, or at least out in the middle of Devil's Lake. So thanks for jumping on. Good luck in the tournament. Good luck the rest of the season. If people want to get a hold of you, can you give your website or the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so my phone number is 605-940-9943, and you can find that on realtherapyguideservice.com also.
Awesome, Marcus. Thanks for jumping on. Anybody listening to the podcast, you want to get out and fish South Dakota with Marcus for numbers of fish. I know this fall, it's going to be incredible. I'm not sure how much time you have this fall for customers to do so, but you can also get on the books with him this winter. Next spring, he runs a snow bear. He's got a first-class operation. Marcus, you might be hearing from me here this fall yet. Good luck in the tournament, buddy.
Thank you.
Okay, stay tuned. We got more Dialed In Angling coming your way.
Man Trap Lodge, a Park Rapids resort on beautiful Big Man Trap Lake. Features 16 decked-out private cabins with air conditioning, Wi-Fi, and a rare Northwood swimming pool. Cabins are available with 1 to 5 bedroom units to select from. Whether you're looking for a fishing trip, a family vacation, or a family reunion, Man Trap Lodge is the Park Rapids resort for you. Rent one of our fishing boats for a great day of fishing or a pontoon to cruise around the lake and relax. Man Trap Lodge is a truly magical Minnesota vacation spot that's fun for the whole family. Don't miss your chance to book your late summer or fall trip at Man Trap Lodge for some fantastic fishing. Check us out at mantraplodge.com.
The sun's out and the fun's out at Runnings this summer. The annual bucket sale is back, and you get 15% off everything you can fit inside, even sale-priced items. Remember, the bucket is free with a $5 purchase. The bucket sale happening at all Runnings stores Friday and Saturday, July 18th and 19th. Shop in-store and fill your bucket with items from all departments, including clothing, pets, sporting goods, lawn and garden, tools, and more. Get 15% off everything that fits in your bucket. Some exclusions apply. The bucket sale at Runnings, now with 90 locations. Go to runnings.com to find the store in your community.
Watertown, South Dakota is your hub for year-round fishing in the heart of the Glacial Lakes region. With Lakes Kempeska and Pelican right in town and dozens more just a short drive away, you'll find non-stop action for walleye, perch, and pike, just to name a few. When you're off the water, explore the Terry Redland Art Center, Bramble Park Zoo, and many other great museums. Plus, award-winning pizza and family-friendly fun around every corner. Easy to reach, hard to leave. Plan your next cast at visitwatertownsd.com. So much Watertown, so little time.
Okay, I want to thank Marcus Quam from Real Therapy for jumping on the podcast and talking a little bit about South Dakota fishing, what he's been up to. Obviously, he's in North Dakota fishing a tournament. Had some technical difficulties with him jumping on, a few spots. He was starting to fade in and out of just being out on the lake. He's literally pre-fishing for a tournament. So I really appreciate him taking the time and jumping on the podcast with us. If you want a great time, Marcus is a fantastic guide, but he's also a great guy. If you've ever fished with Marcus, he's super laid back, a really good dude to fish with, a wealth of knowledge, a great angler. So, if that Waubay area or Bitter or anything is on your radar for winter, he runs a snow bear, open water, obviously, boat excursions. Also, if you're visiting Watertown, South Dakota, if Marcus can't take you, he knows a lot of people in that area and a lot of other guides that can take you out fishing. Fantastic fishing. On this podcast, I talk a lot about seasonal techniques where I need to scratch that itch, whether it be a smallmouth bite, a walleye bite, panfish. There's just certain times a year that I like to not only, use certain techniques, but there's certain times a year that I like to travel to different destinations to catch fish. In that region in which they're in there, kind of that Glacial Lakes region, whether it's in Watertown, whether it's in Waubay, is a real special place. And it's not that far. Like if you live down in the Twin Cities, for example, it's only 3.5 hours away. You can be to all these destinations. And what's cool about that area is it's great ice fishing. It's great open water fishing. And you've got a ton of different lakes down in that area in which you can fish, a lot of different species as well. So it's not like going to one destination and you're sort of handcuffed to that destination. I know, even up here where I guide in Minnesota, I fish a lot of big bodies of water, whether it's Mille Lacs, Leech, Winnie, whatever. But if the wind's blowing or something like that, it can be challenging to get out, especially for people that are on vacation. For me as a guide, I got a great big Lund boat. I can pretty much go anywhere. But if you're going to a destination in which you want to, maybe take a guide out on the first day and then fish on your own, It's more challenging when you're on a great big body of water that you can't hide out of the wind. That's not the case in that area, whether it's Watertown, Waubay, the Glacial Lakes region, all those little pothole lakes. You can get away from the wind. You can get away from the people. You can fish multi-species. So I highly encourage people, if they're interested, if that South Dakota region maybe isn't on your radar, it should be, because it's really good fishing. Like Marcus touched on, those year classes of walleyes are off the charts. I know personally from being out there catching them with Marcus last winter, and then just like I said on the podcast, with buddies of mine that have been out there that just continually to go out there, let's say once a month or once every couple months, because the fishing is so good. Off air, prior to lining up Marcus for the podcast, he was telling me, he was like, yeah, I was on a guide trip and, caught close to 100 walleyes. That is remarkable for August, to talk about catching that many fish or just hundreds of walleyes in that year class. Now, it might be old hat for him, but for customers that, are looking for a good bite right now, that's definitely should be on your radar. And there's a lot of good lakes out in that area, Watertown, South Dakota included. Pick a map and pick a lake, and I'm telling you, you're going to catch fish. I always, if I'm looking to go on a trip anywhere, right, I will jump on YouTube. I'll kind of YouTube a few things, look up some local guides that maybe are posting videos, Instagram as well. I'll kind of, like, once I narrow down those people that I find on YouTube, I'll go to their Instagram pages or Facebook pages, check and see what they're about. Also, local intel from bait shops. Like, I will break down and just swing into local bait shops, say hi, find out where they're biting in what area. In that particular part of the world where there's a ton of lakes, just like up here in northern Minnesota, it's really helpful to just kind of swing into a local bait shop, talk to the people in person. In addition, doing your research ahead of time, pulling up Onyx maps, right? I do it all the time in Minnesota, pulling up map systems, looking at all sorts of different informations on the map, YouTube videos, consulting local guides, checking local fishing reports. All of that plays into kind of gathering that information or gathering information to, decide where you're going to go, what you're going to fish, and you're going to be a better informed angler if you do so. That about wraps it up for me for this week's podcast. Once again, I want to thank Marcus. I also want to touch on just some August bites that are going on just around the region of Minnesota. I've been on Winnie this past few weeks. I've been on Leech. I've been on Mille Lacs, all of which are decent. Winnie was really good year class of small fish. Actually caught some jumbo perch when I was up there. Great fishing in that area. Leech was sort of hit or miss. One day was really good. The next day, just so. Leech, Winnie, Mille Lacs right now, because there's so much forage in all those bodies of water, which is a very good thing. If you don't have wind, it becomes challenging. And we get a lot of days in August where you don't have wind. So next week's podcast, you're going to want to look forward to that and tune into that, because we are heading to Lake Superior. That is a lake that I want it to be calm on. I don't want to be out there when it's rough, but I'm heading up to Lake Superior, going to do a little bit of lake trout fishing, maybe a little bit of lake trout jigging. I'm really looking forward to getting back to Lake Superior. It's been a number of years since I fished on that body of water. It's just sort of trying to fit in all of the fishing that I do, including guiding, including tournaments or filming or whatever else I'm doing in the fishing world. It's really hard to fit in certain bites. And, to be realistic, other than going out to Green Bay or Lake Huron last year, I haven't fished Lake Superior or the Great Lakes for a long period. And so I'm really looking forward to getting back to Lake Superior, doing a little lake trout fishing. Lake Superior is amazing body of water, not just that it's, one of the largest freshwater lakes in the world. It is really an evolving fishery. Like, over the last few years, I don't know if a lot of people know, but the smelt population has really rebounded. The lake trout population is super healthy. Salmon, I'm getting a lot of good reports. Like when I talking to some buddies that are fishing up in Duluth, let's say in March and April, for example. They're getting really good coho fishing, the walleye fishing. If you've seen any posts, I know Hunter Nitty was up there. They had a tournament up there where they had record bags for walleyes. So Lake Superior has been sort of on my radar the last few years, but I'm finally doing it. I got a couple days off here next week. So me and my son Robbie are going to run up there. We'll give you full details on our total experience on Lake Superior next week. So thanks for tuning in. Good luck fishing to everybody. I know it's August. Fall is right around the corner, but you can get out and get after it. I know there's a lot of good fishing here. It looks like the nights are starting to cool off a little bit. It can be a little bit up and down in August, but hang in there in the next few weeks. The fishing just should continue to get better. Until next week, I'm Tony Roach. Thanks for tuning into the Dialed In Angling Podcast.